It is a notorious fact that the Shadow of the Erdtree trailer that was released a few days ago was very well received. It was to be expected after all. Getting news about a huge expansion to the absolute best game ever made in the history of video games is, quite literally, serious business. My impression of the trailer was overwhelmingly positive, as evidenced by an uploaded 3-minute video that can only be described as extreme fanboyism. That being said, having spent the past hours poring over the footage, I was able to gather my thoughts on some speculation and expectation in regards to the new abilities and weapons that we will receive with the expansion. The main focus of this video will be items. These include armor, weapons, sashes of war, and spells. What are the new toys that we will be able to play with when Shadow of the Erdtree releases on June 21st of this year? Well, let's get started. The footage released actually had multiple examples of new fashion possibilities. In these cases, since it is impossible to know the stats of the armors shown, we have to judge them by the looks. And honestly, there's some good samples. One of the first things that we get to see is this helmet. I decided to call this the Adorned helmet, and it honestly looks great. We get to see it for about 2 seconds, but it is enough to understand that it will probably be some kind of plate armor. Its chest piece has this white looking cape, and I think it will prove to be a good knight type armor. Overall, we don't get to see much, but it is enough to get the gist of what to expect. Next to that, I am showing you what I have baptized as the Dark Knight armor set. As you can see, it is the new official edgy armor. It honestly looks to be a complete improvement over the Knight Cavalry armor set from the base game. It looks like heavy protective armor dyed black with a dark cape. What's not to like? If you have a Guts cosplay build, this is probably going to be your new fashion. The next few examples that I want to focus on are these. First, we see this individual that is on the ground wearing what looks to be a white mask. We have multiple examples of masks in the game already. That said, this mask seems to be attached to a lot of hair. Judging by the way Elden Ring deals with hair on helmets, remembering Melania's helm and Godfrey's crown, I can definitely see this new white mask wrap all of this hair around your player model. Personally, I am not a fan of these kinds of armors. I very much prefer knight type armors. That being said, it is nice to have more options. Next to this, I want to take a look at this tarnish that is riding on Thorns. They appear to be wearing some kind of chest piece that provides cape-like feathered wings. As the character model bounces to the rhythm of Thorns' gallops, these wings flap independently from each other. It gives the character a wild and savage vibe that can be useful for barbarian or witch doctor type tarnished. This is a piece that I am very curious about. These next two clips are my favorites when it comes to armor. I believe that both of these are NPCs that we will be able to interact with. That being said, I hope that we are still able to obtain their armor, either through a peaceful or deadly resolution. My absolute favorite is this Gladiator type armor set that we get a glimpse of. Full chest armor with a beautiful cape and a masked helmet, but still keeping light on the legs for additional movement. I absolutely love this, and I believe that it will get a lot of use if we're able to obtain it in-game. And then we have this other character that I am guessing is also an NPC. The armor that this tarnished wears looks to be made more of stone rather than metal. Judging by what we are shown, it also looks to be an armor set of the larger variety. Looking at this character, I am reminded of Havel the Rock, so I am fully expecting that this armor set will be of the extremely heavy and protective types. I sure hope so, because I do not like how the Bull Goat set looks, and I would appreciate some more big boy variety. Finally, let's talk about this guy. Listen, you may like the peacock collar, or you may not like the peacock collar. Both opinions are acceptable. That being said, I like the peacock collar, and I hope that we are able to get it. This guy is most likely an NPC, and he looks important, so probably a lot of story relation with him. Maybe he has a quest line that we can complete in order to get his fashion, or maybe he's going to have to make an existential sacrifice. I don't know, but I do strongly wish that we are allowed to wear this man's clothing. I think it's magnificent. My dear viewer, take a look at this madman. This Tarnished has made the decision that he was done with weapons and pulled out the biggest fire pot that I have ever seen. That is one big ass fire pot. So big in fact that he needed 2 hands in order to heave that shit into the incoming enemies. I am in love with this thing. Pot consumables in Elden Ring are actually very useful, and they even have a support structure that heavily increases their damage. Pot consumable builds are very possible and very fun. We have normal pots, then we have the ritual pots, and now we have big ass pots. We only get to see big ass fire pots, but I hope that we get the whole family. Big ass lightning pots, big ass leap pots, big ass frost pots. Every single pot in the game should get a big ass version. Whether they are swords, axes, hammers, and now pots, everyone loves big ass weapons. The trailer has also given us a glimpse into a few new spells that we will get to enjoy when Shadow of the Erdtree releases. Whether they are sorceries or incantations, these are new magical abilities that we will have access to. First, I want to bring to your attention to this enemy. It looks to be a combination of a hippopotamus and a crocodile. After charging at us with its mouth wide open, this enemy rises up on its 2 back legs and it slams down into the ground, releasing a group of thorny vines from its back, much like a porcupine would do. Well, my dear viewer, I believe that we are looking at a new aspect of the Crucible incantation. I will call this aspect of the Crucible Thorns. The reason why I believe this is because there is an image of a Tarnished sprouting very similar looking vines from its back and attacking enemies. This image can be seen on the official website. Furthermore, if you look at the clip of the enemy using this attack, as well as the image of the Tarnished, you will see gold dust-like particles when the attack is executed. These are the same gold dust-like particles that appear in Elden Ring when we cast Aspect of the Crucible incantations. For this reason, I believe that there is a high possibility that we are going to be able to get a new Aspect of the Crucible incantation from this enemy. The next thing that I want to comment on is this fancy looking spell. It would seem that it is an incantation based on the fact that the caster's hand is empty but glowing. This usually means that they have an incantation shield equipped. After twirling around in the air and summoning some pink butterflies, the Tarnished here lowers their arms and executes what looks to be an area of effect spell around the caster. The enemies that are affected by this spell do not seem to take damage. That being said, it would appear that an aura of similar pink butterflies surrounds each of them. This leads me to believe that these enemies have received some kind of status effect or debuff. Taking into consideration that they start swaying back and forth, showing no signs of aggression, I believe that this incantation does one of 2 things. Maybe it incapacitates enemies, not letting them attack you for a short period of time. Or, my second idea is that this spell takes control of lesser enemies and makes them fight for you, again, for a short period of time. In fact, we have an item with a similar effect in the game already. We are able to craft bewitching branches, which allow us to take control of one single enemy for a short period of time. This item is tied to Miquella, so I believe that this incantation belongs to a new school of incantations that is also tied to Miquella, and that revolves around the manipulation of entities. Obviously, this is just speculation based on observation, but I would really enjoy having this kind of effect in the game. Controlling enemies to fight for you would open up a fantastic strategy for dealing with large groups of enemies, or for dealing with bosses that summon their own reinforcements. The last spell that I want to highlight is this magnificent bear roar that is executed by this precipice. The first thing to note is that this looks to be an incantation, again evidenced by the Tarnished's empty glowing hand. This evidently looks like a roar type incantation, and it follows a similar pattern to the Dragon Communion incantations. Instead of summoning a dragon head to execute the attack, this Tarnished summons a bear head. I hate to always come back to the same thing, but I really have a feeling that this is another aspect of the Crucible incantation. I know that it's getting out of hand and not everything can be another Crucible incantation, but honestly, look at this bear. It has twisty horns and bright red patches of fur. It looks Crucible-like, showing animalistic and chimera characteristics. We also have Greyol's Roar in the game as a point of comparison, so I expect this Bear Roar to deal damage and inflict some kind of debuff to the enemies. I really enjoy how it looks. It is savage and fierce. I look forward to using it. There were many instances in the trailer where we were able to see glimpses of new weapons and new abilities. Some of them are clearly weapons, and then we have other cases in which we could be seeing an Ash of War. It is impossible to know for sure, but we can make some observations. The first case that I want to look at is one that probably caught everyone's attention. We see a Tarnished doing a triple aerial kick that looks absolutely fantastic. Throughout the whole attack, each time a kick connects with the enemy, the Tarnished feet are enveloped by what I can only describe as a smoky aura. Now, there are two possibilities here. We could be seeing an Ash of War consisting of this triple kick. This would allow us to have access to this attack on many different weapon types. And then, of course, we have to entertain the possibility that this attack is part of the moveset for a completely new weapon type. This could be the charged R2 for a new, unique fist weapon, or some kind of leg-based weapon that unlocks this martial arts moveset. Personally, I am more inclined to think that this is an Ash of War, but we should not entirely dismiss the chance that this attack could have a full moveset behind it. Let's not forget that the Bone Fist already exists in Dark Souls 2. Next up, we're going to take a look at this sequence. We see a Tarnished using two curved swords. The most obvious notes to make are that this character is using the swords with a reverse grip, meaning that weapons are pointing downward. And then of course, the sidestep maneuver that leads into another attack. Starting with the weapon, they look like regular curved swords, but the fact that the grip is different gives us two alternatives. This may be a unique weapon, maybe a paired weapon that has a unique grip with a unique moveset. Or it could be a completely new weapon type designed to be an alternative to the curved swords we already have access to. If we entertain the idea of a brand new weapon type, we have to ask ourselves, besides the reverse grip, what do they provide that is different from the regular curved swords that we already can use? They look like light, fast weapons. They look like they could be good for status applications. But these are things that we already have access to. That being said, they do look incredibly cool, and sometimes that is all the justification that we need. Personally, I am more inclined to believe that these are standalone weapons with a unique moveset, but I would love to see a fully dedicated weapon category for this style of armament. As for the sidestep, I think that this is a clear Ash of War. Maybe it is a unique Ash of War specific to these swords, or maybe we'll be able to use it in other weapons. Regardless of the case, this particular skill looks very similar to Quick Step. The character uses it to move towards the enemy's flank to continue their assault. It will definitely be useful to keep the pressure on the enemy, but the important question will be, does it have any invulnerability frames? If it does, it will also prove to be a fantastic defensive tool capable of flipping the course of battle. Being able to quickly go from being attacked to attacking is very valuable. This is definitely one of the skills that I will be experimenting with. Moving on, I want to take a look at this sequence. We see a Tarnished using some throwing knives against an enemy, but these are not like any other throwing knives consumable that we have already access to. The fact that this Tarnished throws these knives at the enemy and then they reappear in their hands to be thrown again leads me to believe that we are looking at an armament. This is a weapon. So now, we're back to the same question. Is this a special, paired dagger, unique weapon that has this kind of special moveset? Or are we witnessing a brand new weapon category? In my opinion, I think that this might be a new weapon category. I would call it the thrown weapon. We are seeing knives, but maybe we can also get small axes to throw or iron balls that provide strike type damage. The point is that these thrown daggers provide us a large enough change to warrant a new category. We are witnessing fast, short-ranged projectiles that give the player a completely different playstyle, dodging the enemy, dipping in and out of their reach while constantly peppering them with these weapons. It honestly sounds like a lot of fun. In this case, I am definitely hoping that these throwing knives are part of a completely new weapon category that we will be able to enjoy. let's take a moment to go back to our Dark Knight. We already spoke about his armor, but now we have to give this automatic crossbow some time to shine. This is basically the crossbow that Slave Knight Gale uses against us in that fantastic final boss battle in the Ringed City. I tried my best to see how many shots it fired, and by analyzing some frame freezes of the weapon, I estimated about 8 to 9 shots in one single barrage. It is hard to count these shots because this character is using perfumer bolts, and the sparks make it confusing. But I make this guess based on the amount of bolts that are loaded into the crossbow before it fires. In this case, about 8 bolts per activation means that this weapon is absolutely magnificent at causing status effects. Imagine using bleed bolts or frost bolts or even sleep bolts on this thing. It is an automatic status effect proc. This has a lot of numbers to be one of the best side weapons in the game. It's like having automatic status effects at the push of a button. I imagine that it will have a considerable strength requirement. The clip you are seeing now is the longest one that I am going to show you, and there is a lot happening. We're going to take this step by step as we need to go over 2 weapons and 2 potential Ashes of War. Right off the bat, we see 2 armaments. One of them looks to be a medium shield and the other looks like a twin blade. The shield seems to have a very aggressive design with a big spike both on the top side and bottom side. In fact, we see the Tarnish attempt to hit Mesmer with the shield before getting grabbed. This looks to me like a new shield type Ash of War in which the Tarnished picks up the shield and slams it into the enemy. Normally, shield-based Ashes of War act by bashing the enemy with the face of the shield. This new attack certainly brings variety to the table. I welcome the addition of more offensive-based shield armaments. Miyazaki already mentioned the concept of dueling shields in an interview. As a fan of shields, I look forward to exploring this further. Moving on to the twin blade, we don't really see it in action in this shot. That being said, it would seem like it's the dominant weapon when the Tarnish jumps into the air, sprouting wings. I think that we all agree that this is aspect of the Crucible, wings, that some Crucible Knights use on us. That being said, it is not clear if it's an incantation. With a twin blade in the right hand and a shield in their left, this Tarnish does not have an incantation shield equipped. If this is the case, then how is it casting the wings? To answer this question, we have to entertain 2 possibilities. The first one is that aspect of the Crucible wings is not an incantation, but instead it is an Ash of War. In this way, it could be equipped to a weapon and casted without an incantation seal. As for the second possibility, well, maybe aspect of the Crucible wings is an incantation and it is indeed being casted with a seal. It could be that this twin blade that the Tarnished is wielding is a weapon catalyst hybrid. In other words, it could be an armament that acts both as a weapon and an incantation seal. We have seen examples of this mechanic back in Dark Souls 2, the most obvious one being the blue flame Greatsword, which was both a sword and a sorcery catalyst. So, which one can it be? Accepting that both options are possible, it is my opinion that we are witnessing a weapon catalyst hybrid. I believe that, for whatever reason, this twin blade can cast incantations. Why do I believe this? First of all, when casting wings, the Tarnish lifts the twin blade into the air as if the magic was stemming from it. It looks like the twin blade is the source of the incantation. And then, we have to remember that this Tarnished is one-handing the twin blade with a shield. In Elden Ring, when you do this, the Ash of War that takes priority is the one in the shield. If there is no skill on the shield, then the main hand Ash of War receives priority of execution. If we accept this, and we remember that this Tarnished has what looked like a shield strike Ash of War, then it would be impossible for aspect of the Crucible wings to be executed as an Ash of War from the one-handed twin blade. Due to all of this, I choose to believe that we could be in the presence of a weapon catalyst hybrid in Elden Ring. Now, it is important to remember that this is all speculation based on simple observation. I do this because it's fun and because I want cool things from Dark Souls 2 to be brought back into Elden Ring. There are other probable explanations, but this is the one that I choose to believe until we get further information. The final thing I want to show you is this. It is a quick check on this clip to make sure that the trailer is not hiding a greatsword from us. Greatswords are probably my favorite weapon type in the game, so I always keep a lookout for new ones that may appear in the trailers. Take a look at this clip and this image. My dear viewer, I do not know if this thing you see here is an enemy, a boss, an NPC, or just a poor soul that is suffering. I do not know. What I do know is that this poor soul is 100% a greatsword. Just look, it is right there. The part protruding from this entity's head is the grip. Then the head itself will act as the crossguard, and finally the spinal cord of this entity alongside the spikes that it shows is the blade. I do not know why or how we are going to get this greatsword, but we will get this greatsword. Not only this, but the ash of war of this greatsword will be a shriek coming from the severed head that acts as the guard. This shriek will either buff us or debuff the enemy, but the head will scream and something will happen. I have absolutely no evidence to back up this claim, but I have never been so sure about something in a video game throughout my whole life. This has got to be a greatsword. I know it, and you, my dear viewer, know it too. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope that I get to see you on the next one.